The present policy of the government is but a continuation of the same progressive change by a milder process. The tribes which occupied the countries now constituting the eastern states were annihilated or have melted away to make room for the whites. The waves of population and civilization are rolling to the westward, and now we propose to acquire the countries occupied by the red men of the South and West by a fair exchange and at the expense of the United States to send them to a land where their existence may be prolonged and perhaps made perpetual. Doubtless it will be painful to leave the graves of their fathers. But what do they do more than our ancestors did or that our children are now doing? To better their condition in an unknown land, our forefathers left all that was dear in earthly objects. Our children by thousands yearly leave the land of their birth to seek new homes in distant regions. Does humanity weep at these painful separations from everything animate and inanimate from which the young heart has become entwined? Far from it. It is rather a source of joy that our country affords scope where our young population may range unconstrained in body and in mind, developing the power and faculties of man in their highest perfection. These remove hundreds and almost thousands of miles at their own expense, purchase the lands they occupy, and support themselves at their new homes from the moment of their arrival. Can it be cruel in this government when, by events which it cannot control, the Indian is made discontented in his ancient home to purchase his lands, to give him a new and extensive territory, and to pay the expense of his removal and support him a year in his new abode? How many thousands of our own people would gladly embrace the opportunity of removing to the West on such conditions? If the offers made to the Indians were extended to them, they would be hailed with gratitude and joy. And is it supposed that the wandering savage has a stronger attachment to his home than the settled, civilized Christian? Is it more afflicting to him to leave the graves of his fathers than it is to our brothers and children? Rightly considered, the policy of general government toward the red man is not only liberal but generous. He is unwilling to submit to the laws of the states and mingle with their population. To save him from this alternative or perhaps utter annihilation, the general government kindly offers him a new home and proposes to pay the whole expense of his removal and settlement. The Indian removal policy of President Jackson and the United States government resulted in the removal, often through military force, of tens of thousands of American Indians from their ancestral homelands in the East to Indian Territory. Thousands would die of disease, starvation, and exposure on these forced marches. Chief George Harkness's letter. We were hedged in by two evils, and we chose that which we thought the least. Yet we could not recognize the right that the state of Mississippi had assumed to legislate for us. Although the legislature of the state were qualified to make laws for their own citizens, that did not qualify them to become lawmakers to a people that were so dissimilar in manners and customs as the Choctaws are to the Mississippians. Admitting that they understood the people, could they remove that mountain of prejudice that has ever obstructed the streams of justice and prevent their salutary influence from reaching my devoted countrymen? We, as Choctaws, rather chose to suffer and be free rather than live under the degrading influence of laws which our voice could not be heard in their formation. Much as the state of Mississippi has wronged us, I cannot find in my heart any other settlement than an ardent wish for her prosperity and happiness. I could cheerfully hope that those of another age and generation may not feel the effects of those oppressive measures that have been so illiberally dealt out to us, and that peace and happiness may be their reward. Amid the gloom and horrors of the present separation, we are cheered with a hope that ere long we shall reach our destined land, and that nothing short of the basest acts of treachery will ever be able to wrest it from us, and that we may live free. Although your ancestors won freedom on the field of danger and glory, our ancestors owned it as a part of their birthright, and we had to purchase it from you as the vilest slaves by their freedom. Yet it is said that our present movements are our own voluntary acts. Such is not the case. We found ourselves like a benign stranger, following false guides until he was surrounded on every side with fire and water. The fire was certain destruction, and a feeble hope was left to him of escaping by water. A distant hope of the opposite shore encourages the hope, and to remain would be inevitable annihilation. Who would hesitate, or who would say that his plunging into the water was his own voluntary act? Painful in the extreme is the mandate of our expulsion. We regret that it should proceed from the mouth of our professed friend, for whom our blood was commingled with that of his bravest warriors on the field of danger and death. But such is the instability of professions. The man who said he would plant a stake and draw a line around us, that it should never be passed, was the first to say he could not guard the lines, and drew up the stake and wiped out all traces of the line. I will not conceal from you my fears that the present grounds may be removed. I have my foreboding. Who of us can tell after witnesses what already has been done, what the next force may be?